randomly we have problems with the journalists and how they report about wildlife rampages or wildlife conflict with local communities. And
the coordinator of the Gambia Biodiversity, Abdraman Salah, delved briefly on the history of the group as an organization which is formed to help accelerate government's effort.
The Environmental and Natural Resource Youth-led organization established December 10, as my colleague said, with technical support from Parks and Wildlife. The objective, among others, is to raise public awareness on the environmental thematic areas in a bid to encourage local participation in protecting and conserving the environment.
Gabriel Barry of the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, who stepped in for the permanent secretary, called on all and sundry to shoulder the burden of environmental sustainability in the march towards combating environmental menaces.
To ensure that the future generations inherit a sound and sustainable environment, it is the collective responsibility of every facet and strata of society to educate and positively empower the future generation.
The principal climate change officer dilated on the term biodiversity, its effect and causes.
I wish to emphasize the important roles of the private NGOs, CSOs and community-based organizations in the protection and conservation of the biological and natural resources for prosperity. The Gambia's biodiversity resource is dwindling unprecedented. Illegal logging through the use of chainsaws, fragmentation through unplanned settlements and inadequate forest parks designation are some of the causes.
The Gambia Biodiversity Action Journalist is the newest group that is aiming to promote community participation in the protection and management of the country's biological and natural resources for prosperity. Momodes Jala, Grts.
The Central Bank of the Gambia informs the general public that following an earlier press release issued by the Office of the President on Friday, 18 January 2013, it has with effect from the 4th February 2013 introduced new hours for operations from Mondays to Thursdays as follows. Banking hours to the public is now from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., automated check processing and automated clearinghouse 8:15 a.m. to 3 p.m., while real-time gross settlement starts from 8:15 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The central bank, according to a media dispatch, will be offering limited services in relation to real-time gross settlement, automated check processing and automated clearinghouse only to the commercial banks on Fridays. The release says the bank will not be open for business on Saturdays and public holidays. That release takes us to our first break. When we come back, we take a look at news from outside the Gambia station. Welcome back. South African Paralympic hero Oscar Pistorius is facing murder charges after he confessed to shooting his girlfriend, whom he mistaken for intruder. Pistorius, also known as Blade Runner, is a national icon, having won 6 gold medals since 2004 and became the first double amputee to compete in the Olympics. We have more on that unfortunate incident in the CFI report.
Highly protected residential area in Pretoria. It's here at the home of sprint star Oscar Pistorius that police discovered this morning the lifeless body of the athlete's girlfriend. The victim, 30-year-old model Riva Steelkamp, was shot 4 times and died at the scene. Suspected of murdering her, Pistorius was taken into custody. He reportedly said he took her for an intruder.
There are witnesses and they've also been interviewed this morning. We're talking about neighbors and people that heard things that happened earlier in the evening and when the shooting took place, yes.
Police said there have already been allegations of domestic disputes at the home of the accused. The athlete, known as Blade Runner because of his carbon fiber running blade, is to appear in court on Friday. A national icon, Oscar Pistorius had both legs amputated below the knee when he was 11 months old, as he was born without lower leg bones. Since 2004, he has won 6 gold medals, including 3 in the Beijing Paralympics. Pistorius made history at the 2012 London Games when he became the first double amputee to compete in the Olympics.
A court in the Ivory Coast has ordered the release of the former Secretary General of Laurent Gbagbo's party. Laurent Akun was handed a 6-month jail term for allegedly accusing Alassane Ouattara of wanting to kill Mr. Gbagbo. And Morocco's Jewish community has welcomed the completion of reconstruction work on a symbolic synagogue at a colorful ceremony graced by the country's Prime Minister. For more on those and other stories, let's turn to this roundup of African news by CFI.
The International Literary Festival, Étonnant Voyageur, is heading to Brazzaville this year. There will be 4 days of readings, debates, and meetings with authors from across the continent of Africa. This year, literary professor and author Alain Babankou is directing the festival, and the theme is The Coming of Africa. It was originally scheduled to take place in Bamako, but the location was changed to Brazzaville for security reasons. A court in Côte d'Ivoire has ordered the release of the Secretary General of former President Laurent Gbagbo's party. Laurent Akun will be freed on February 28th, but will be restricted to his home region for 1 year. An opposition lawyer called the decision dangerous. What we can say about this is that the court made this decision, and we don't agree with this decision, because it is a political decision, and we don't expect that from judges. Laurent Akun was sentenced to 6 months in prison on August 31st for disturbing the peace after remarks he made about President Alassane Ouattara. He accused Ouattara of being a liar and wanting to kill Laurent Gbagbo. The restoration of the 17th century Slat al-Fasayin synagogue in Fez, Morocco was completed this week. A ceremony was held in Medina, the old city of Fez, to mark the end of the project. It was attended by 200 people, including Prime Minister Abdallah Ben Kirain. Ben Kirain read out a message from King Mohammed in which he hailed the spiritual wealth and diversity of Morocco. The new constitution adopted in 2011 recognizes Jewish heritage as part of Morocco's national identity. Morocco had a Jewish community of nearly 250,000 in the first half of the 20th century. There are now estimated to be less than 3,000.
South Korea says the cruise missile it recently unveiled is a precision-guided weapon capable of targeting and striking the office window of the North Korean leadership. Seoul and Pyongyang have long been trading verbal salvos, and there appears to be little, if any, sign of improvement in their relationship. Meanwhile, Washington, an ally of South Korea and Japan, has disclosed plans to deploy a missile shield to protect her friends in the region. Details in this report.
Following North Korea's successful nuclear test on Tuesday, the UN Security Council promised to expand sanctions against the country. But sanctions have failed in the past to bring Pyongyang to heel, and there are fears that further sanctions would only destabilize the country, provoking a political crisis that could threaten the entire region. With no other course of action apparently open, South Korea did a little saber-rattling of its own, unveiling its latest cruise missile.
This missile is a precision-guided weapon which can target and strike an office window of the North Korean leadership. Its destructive power is capable of restraining the leadership's activities, which are threatening our democratic government.
The United States said it was ready to deploy a missile shield to protect its allies, South Korea and Japan, a move which would no doubt displease China. North Korea said its nuclear test was an act of self-defense against American hostility. The U.S. Defense Secretary called it a provocation.
The regime's actions are increasing the risks of proliferation and further isolating North Korea from the international community. There is no question that North Korea constitutes a threat to the United States, to regional stability, and to global security.
Although China has wearied of North Korea's bad behavior, it remains a strong ally and the country's chief trading partner. If any sanction were to have effect, it would probably be China's suspension of oil and food exports. But the crisis arising from such a move may be a risk too big to take.
We now take a second break. We'll be right back.